Hi guys, welcome to the Double Edge series. Today we look at the good and bad of credit. Now you're watching the bad version. So basically here we're going to be talking about the bad effects or the bad side of credit and how it affects your life negatively and what you need to do to avoid this. Let's get to it.
My name is Brad Patty, and my 7 years experience as an accountant and wealth advisor has made me realize that people lack a functional relationship with money. I'm here to help.
It's very important to remember that in everything that I'm doing, I am applying the perspective of creating wealth. Growing up, I always wanted to have a credit card or some sort of way. In fact, it was not even about the credit card. It was more like I wanted to have a big house, I wanted to have an awesome car. I just wanted things in life. And little did I know that when I got my first job, it started to notice that, hey, now I'm able to apply and get credit. But now the trick is, do you use credit for consumption or to create wealth? Now imagine this is that situation where you're about to go into credit. It's the first time you've ever applied for any sort of credit, and your credit score is looking good. You have a good income or you have some income, but this income is allowing you to basically buy anything. Now, I wish when I was in the same situation years ago, somebody would have paused and sat down with me and actually told me, like, hey, this is what is going to happen when you start getting into credit. Remember now, your first credit transaction determines or can determine the rest of your life. What do I mean? When you're effectively going into your first credit transaction, most of the time you go for something small, like a phone, some people, small thing could be a car. And effectively, what happens is if you do not successfully complete that credit transaction, when I say complete, I mean you get the car, you pay your credit, and you pay it for the whole 5 years. Now, if you don't do that successfully, this could have an extremely negative impact to your credit, and this effectively will bar you from even getting a home loan. Not only getting a home loan, but it could bar you from even getting a simple cell phone contract by just messing up this initial credit purchase. And that's why it's very important while I'm creating this video to make people aware that when you get into your first credit purchase, get into the right type of credit that's going to help you to build wealth instead of helping your consumption needs, because that first credit transaction is the one that sets the pace for the rest of your life. When dealing with credit, it's very important to realize that you are getting a benefit today and you're going to pay for it for a certain amount of time in the future. Now, this is potentially a bad deal because imagine buying a chocolate that you eat and enjoy now, but you have to pay for it over some time. Now, initially you might feel like you are able to do that and you're happy and it's fine, you can afford it. But what effectively happens is now your psychology starts to say, okay, I enjoyed this chocolate today. Now, come day 5, I am not happy because now I want another chocolate. Because remember, your satisfaction of something lasts, for a certain time. It's totally periodic and it's short-lived. Now, imagine getting that instant gratification and you have a long-lasting debt. That's what's effectively happening to a lot of people when they're accessing credit. Now imagine this happening on a scale of 20 years in terms of home loans. Imagine over 5 years in terms of vehicle financing. And this is why many people end up not seeing the wealth creating benefits of credit simply because they're borrowing for consumption purposes. However, if you were to borrow for investment or cash or acquiring cash generating assets, you'll have a totally different credit experience. Now, many people, as the debt levels or credit levels are very high, simply because people are borrowing as a means of survival. And this is a very, very horrible way of living your life because you're basically living not just on borrowed time, effectively speaking, but you're literally borrowing out of a zero, in fact a negative net cash flow impact or net cash flow status. And what do I mean? Remember, when you calculate your net worth is effectively your assets minus liabilities. In other words, what you own versus what you owe, right? So if you have assets worth 500 and liabilities worth 1000, your net worth is minus 500. And what that means is that you are living a negative cash flow life. In other words, all the money that you have is borrowed money, because if you were to, God forbid, die today, your estate will have minus 500, and that's that debt needs to be paid off by somebody, your next of kin. In some cases it's your wife, could be your children, whoever. That's usually, this is the opposite of an inheritance, right? And many people right now, instead of giving out inheritances, people are transferring debt. So it's very important to understand that when this is happening, when you're effectively borrowing debt, or you're borrowing and you're creating liabilities, you are creating something that needs to be paid at a later stage. Even if you die, your credit or your debt does not necessarily die. So it's very important to realize these things, because your debt is everlasting up until you sort it out. Otherwise, it has to impact somebody. Now, the impacts that happen is either you get blacklisted or your assets get liquidated if you have anything. And what this effectively means is that once you've crossed that bridge, you are financially you're not trusted, and therefore you will be unable to access further credit. So in other words, this powerful wealth generating tool, you will be denied access to it. You won't be able to get so many things that in today's lives they're regarded as necessities. And the reason being is simply because of the high cost of inflation. Goods right now are so expensive that normal things, a lot of people are starting to buy via credit. And this is some financial activity that I highly don't recommend. Do not buy groceries on credit. Rather opt for changing into buying cheaper goods that are more affordable, rather than using money that you think you will have in the future versus money that you actually have now. So it's very important to really distinguish between those two, because at the end of the day, that's what will help you to either have a good credit experience or not. And once again, I said that your first credit experience really determines the future of your financial life. Because at the end of the day, if you mess up good credit, you are gonna be facing a seriously big challenge, because at the end of the day, it's going to be very difficult to come out of that, simply because of the way our psychologies work. Imagining paying a old debt with money that you're making today. Nobody's giving money just like that. And then when you get paid, instead of buying bread that you need now because you're hungry now, you are busy paying off debt that you used up long time ago. And now as you are paying that, it's either you are left with something, or effectively you're left with nothing. So now you have to apply double effort, not only to pay off your debt, but also to work in order to just have a decent living. And this is really the financial death trap that credit brings to so many unfortunate people that were either ill-advised or they were just too excited. Because remember also, guys, as much as there's a lot of corporate's responsibility in terms of managing who gets credit, effectively speaking, businesses make money by giving people credit. And not to say that they enjoy destroying the financial lives of people, but them doing that is a way that they use to make sure that you pay a debt. In other words, they are scaring people's lives in order for them to make sure that they pay credit. Because at the end of the day, being blacklisted is like the worst thing than death, because you're going to be end up becoming a financial zombie, whereby you're making money just to pay off previous debt. And unfortunately, those are the type of life choices that people end up having to select. Because at the end of the day, why would a person want to be paying a prior debt in the future? That is the most horrible sentence that one could ever give to another person. And unfortunately, a lot of financial institutions are doing exactly that. And it's not their fault, but there is a shared responsibility. There's a shared, way that we as people going to approach these financial institutions. We need to be honest with ourselves on how we borrow money from them, because if we are not honest with ourselves, then what ends up happening, they say you qualify, and then what do, you go and buy that car, you go and buy all sorts of things that allow you to create a big debt for yourself. And then what happens? Now you have this credit that you need to pay off simply because you enjoyed it on the 29th of whatever the month is, and then tomorrow you need to start paying it back. And guess what? It's not going to be a nice feeling. You might feel like you can't afford, but trust me, after 12 months, not even 5 years or even 20 years, you're already going to be disgruntled and feel like you're not happy. And that's why it's important to use credit as a wealth generating tool rather as a consumption tool. I hope you learned something. See you on the next one.